Hello, and welcome back once again to the Inquisitor podcast. My guest today, Rob Goddard. He's a serial business owner who's overseen 371 business exits in 26 years. He's now building something new, a full-service M&A firm, offering the complete package. So let's jump straight in. You've got 26 years doing this. What are the most common questions people ask you? Let's start with that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the work. It's always good to chat with you, Marcus. Most common questions. I guess there's several come immediately to mind. If we're talking about exit, someone looking at some point to sell their business, the number one question I'm always asked within probably 3-5 minutes of sitting down with them is, how much is my business worth? And in fact, that's the wrong question because I have no idea. I'm not interested in buying them. It's worth nothing to me. I've never taken a business to market with a guide price because a business is worth what someone's prepared to pay for it. That means you've got to go out to the market far and wide to find a variety of potential suitors, all of whom they'll see the same set of accounts, they'll see the same sales prospectus, and they'll all come up with different offers. Yet they've all seen the same information. So I know that you can't value a business on a P&L on a balance sheet. It's so much more, it's deeper than that. It's effectively what that business could do if it was purchased by the acquirer, what that business could do for the acquiring side, not the seller. So it's seeing it from an acquirer's point of view rather than my clients.
Can I just interrupt? Yeah. There's a really important parallel for the audience to pay attention to here. If you are supply side in your selling, you're looking for needles in haystacks and you're going out there looking for the random customer who happens to be in the market to buy what you have at that moment. Maybe 3% of your market. The alternative is demand side, which is to go identify demand that is unmet and unrealized, and then help those customers achieve that so that the customer brings you the needle. And this is about being customer centric in the same way that you have to be acquirer centric if you're setting your business up to sell. And if it's early in the business, start with a blank sheet of paper and think about who your potential acquirer might be and what would make you attractive to them.
Completely agree. A good friend of mine, Mike Winnett, set up a business with 3 other pals. And they did exactly that. They determined who might like to buy the business that they were interested in setting up. And they spent 3 years and then sold it for 8 million quid from a startup. Okay, divide by 4. But the principle was that what they had is the buyer in mind, because an acquirer really is another name for a customer in a sort of normal selling cycle. They are going to pay cash, hopefully, to buy a paper entry called a share certificate. So I find that sellers, business owners that are looking to sell, make the common mistake that they turn up at negotiation meetings to present about their business, and that's the wrong approach. It's the as you've said years ago to me, it's the show up and throw up mentality. And that doesn't go down well with buyers. What they want to hear is, if we bought your business, what could that new business look like if we were lucky enough to acquire your company? It's a very different mindset.
Well, if you're trying to maximize the value in a business, presumably metrics like the cost of customer acquisition, cost of goods sold, the level of repeat business, the level of converted referral business, sales cycle lengths, these things matter more than how many dials people made and all this other stuff. So what are the metrics that you would advise founders to implement right from day one that are demand driven, that leads them to build the right kind of business? So it's appealing to acquirers and it's appealing to customers, because let's face it, the only reason you exist is because of customers.
Yeah, I mean, there's some starting blocks. I mean, it could be dozens, but if I look at the top few that tend to be universal from industry to industry. Turnover and bottom line. I mean, would you believe some business owners don't even know how much money they're turning over year to year?
Mm-hmm.
That is the minority, but some don't know. The majority of business owners don't know their bottom line, profit before tax. They have no idea, not even a guesstimate. I try to be gentle with them and say, well, just roughly. I don't need to know pounds, shillings, and pence. They don't know. The normal answer is my accountant deals with that. Well, that's abdication of responsibility as a business owner. So you should definitely know top line and bottom line. I ask them repeat buyer rate. How many of their clients last year have bought from them this year? This is really important for an acquirer because when you're buying a business, as I've done myself personally, one of the things you fear and the big risk is on a change of ownership, I might have customers, loyal customers that terminate and go elsewhere, particularly as I might increase the prices. So it's a big concern for an acquirer about stickability of clients. And to that effect, how many of their clients, or how many of your clients rather, are under contract? Or are they not? Are all your clients just the phone rings and they give you another order? Well, that's really risky for a buyer. What they want are longer term contracts where customers or clients are contracted to buy from them on a regular basis. That gives me comfort as a buyer that I've got sustainable revenues going forward. And if I get comfort and reduce risk or mitigate risk, I'm prepared to pay more for your business.
Well, this then raises the obvious question. Why is it that we spend and fixate so much effort and energy and attention and resource and money filling the top of the funnel with new when the most profitable customers are your expansion customers? In the SaaS world, it's a difference between 18% for new business, 170 for upsell and cross-sell, and 1150% margin, gross profit, for expansion sales. And if you look at the money that's left on the table in most salespeople's pipelines, they think about organic, perhaps, so a bit of cross-selling and upselling, but they don't think about the supply chain. They don't think about the channel. They don't think about JVs, alumni, family tree, customer's customer. Well, I've yet to go into a company where I can't find 400% growth in their pipeline within 20 minutes by asking questions about those areas that they haven't looked at.
I totally agree. They want to go for the brand new shiny client, which is arguably many, many times harder to land than upselling to an existing client that maybe have been with you for 10 years. There are other ratio or key numbers that clients don't know, but they do once they spend a bit of time with me before we go into battle together.
Such as?
How many prospects do their salespeople have to meet before they get a signed order?
Yeah.
And then before that, how many leads, cold or warm, do they need to get in order to get a qualified prospect? So some very basic maths of selling conversion rates.
MQL to SQL, conversion SQL.
Yes, they don't know them. The business owners don't know them.
Yeah, well, these are leading indicators. And what the problem is they spend most of their time looking at lagging indicators, which is, the horse is already bolted and it's in the other field and it's already mounted the other stat and the mare. And the problem is you're creating these problems and these ripple effects through bad thinking and bad decision making. One of the favorite lessons I learned about 15, 20 years ago was small businesses stay small because the owner keeps them that way. Can we maybe expand on that in terms of some of the cardinal sins that maybe?
Oh, you know the questions to ask, don't you, Marcus?
Not my radio.
Well, I'd preface it by saying that many business owners, even very successful ones, are a legend in their own lunchtime. So they might seek question, or they might ask questions. They might ask questions, but they may not heed the advice, has been my experience, because they know it already. um, some have only asked questions just to go through the hoops. So I think um, where I tend to see people that are looking to sell, their business has plateaued financially. Because if it's on the up and up, then they tend not to want to think about selling, because next year will be even better. And the year after that will be even better than that. So I tend to see ones that have either plateaued or the numbers are going south. And without a shadow of a doubt, there is one common reason why that happen, or why those things happen, and it is the business owner. Businesses don't fail; the business owners fail.
Yeah.
To implement best practice and learn and whatever. I think there are also some business owners as well that quite like the micro side. Maybe they were a one-man band in the old days, and their business has had some success. Maybe it turns over a couple of million quid, but their mindset is still as a one-man band. So all roads lead to them. They don't delegate. They don't empower team members. They still keep control as if it was them and perhaps a couple of people helping them.
Aren't they just trapping themselves into an earnout?
Well, yeah, because some business on the smaller end, I think some people call it charitably a lifestyle business. I say it's not a transferable asset usually, because the biggest asset of the business is the owner, and that's the biggest liability because they're not coming with the business sale. They want to exit stage left because they're unemployable.
Okay, so I've got the $1 million question. What's the biggest lie business owners tell themselves about the value of their company? And what's the truth that they desperately need to hear but never want to
say? They always believe it's a double-digit multiple.
Yeah.
When it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually about half what aspirationally they'd like. And when I start to unpack their aspirational price, which they're reticent to give me up front, it's plucked out of the air. And there's only one of four numbers, given in the universe is an infinite number of numbers, obviously. It's either 1 million, 3 million, 5 million, or 10 million, depending on the size of the business and how greedy they are.
Well, to quote what's his name, Felix Dennis, if you got less than 5 million, you're comfortably poor.
Well, at the very minimum, everyone wants to be a cash millionaire. It's not 937,000 they'd like for the business. It's $1 million. It's always $1 million. So I play with them a little bit and say,
before or after tax?
Yes, that's what I say. And they say, oh, tax. Yes, it's the biggest bill you're going to pay, even larger than my fees. You're going to be paying HMRC. So I'm already conditioning them on price.
And I want you to pay the biggest possible tax.
Yeah, so it's always either they pluck it out of their head or they've spoken to their mate down the pub who said there was a business in their sector that got a multiple of 26 times net profit. So yeah, so brilliant. But that was 100 million turnover business, making 10 million quid on the bottom line, for example. So yeah, in fairness to business owners, they don't know what they don't know, and the vast majority of owners have never sold a business before, so this is new territory for them.
Okay. Well, devil's in the detail, and there are a lot of details that they appear to be blind to that could sink the sale. What's the blind spot that nearly every seller has, and why is it so dangerous to leave that unchecked when preparing for the exit?
Emotion. Categorically. They think, generally, it's a big they, isn't it? Most business sellers I've ever met in the last 26 years believe selling a business is a financial transaction. It's not. Obviously, it's part of the equation. The biggest thing is emotional. It's an emotional transaction. It's letting go of something that you've given birth to, nurtured, and now you're selling it. And business owners, when they're thinking about selling, really tend not to connect with that emotion until the process starts and they get potential buyers to the table, or we do on their behalf. And then they get the Spanish Inquisition from acquirers, bombarding them with questions, detailed drill down questions. And most business owners take umbrage because the acquirer is starting to ask questions that they don't know the seller doesn't know the answer to sometimes, or it's quite a pointed question and they weren't prepared emotionally. Maybe they see it as criticism, the seller.
Well, you can never be emotionally attached to the outcome of any sale. And this is where, you're absolutely right. The attachment is the root to all misery. And if the acquirer, who is a customer, a buyer, wants to have answers in order to feel safe making the investment,
Yeah,
there's nothing unreasonable for them to ask. And if you get defensive because of your lack of preparation, that's more about you than them.
well, you see, you prepare them, and we prepare them before the meeting. We coach them,
Yeah,
days before, but often they ignore it. When they're in the heat of battle, they reverse to type. And so I learned this from our good friend Philip Delisle. I have a
yeah,
pen in my hand below the table,
yeah,
and I'm prodding them
yeah.
because they forget what they've just learned.
Okay, so let me ask you this. It sounds to me, I mean, that happens to my clients when they don't put preparation and practice in, and they haven't got enough time to replace the old neural pathways with new ones so that they can actually draw on what they've learned in the heat of the moment, and they don't revert back to their what they learned first and their natural behavior. So it strikes me that one of the challenges that you must be coming across here is people leaving it too late and then treating the preparation for the exit conversation and the sales conversation with the acquirer as if something they can wing.
Spot on, Marcus. That's why I prefer, and I do offer it up front, a bolt-on. I'd rather spend 2 or 3 years mentoring them and getting to know their business inside out and them as an individual. Then we go to market. But they've had 2 or 3 years worth of understanding their business properly, understanding what the weaknesses, potential weaknesses are, and what could be exploited by an acquirer when the day comes. And more importantly, we can do what I call dry runs,
Yeah,
which is basically a dress rehearsal.
yeah.
And
It's pre-morteming and red teaming.
yes,
You practice before you meet the acquirer instead of in front of them.
yeah, and I enjoy that because being rather sadistic by nature, they're paying me to 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 pose a whole string of curveball questions. And in fact, with me, it's probably a more painful experience with me in a safe space than it is in the real situation.
How often do owners actually get to walk away with just a great big fat check and handing over the keys and never look back?
Be a big vax zero, that one.
Right. Okay. Why not?
Never. Because there's risk and they haven't satisfied, haven't the acquirers reticence and concerns that it might all go Pete Tong the day I buy it.
Okay. So if you had a blank sheet of paper and you're a founder, what would be the priorities and how would you focus your attention on what mattered most in order to ensure that you had a sale ready business at any point when you were ready to sell it?
Number one, you're not part of the business as the owner.
Yay.
It's the biggest stumbling block. And it's the biggest reason why an acquirer would want you to stay on for 2 or 3 years and become an employee again and do what they tell you to do. It sounds horrendous, doesn't it, Marcus?
Whilst getting diluted.
Yeah. Yeah. So make yourself redundant from your own business. You can't do it overnight, but do it over a period of time. Go to 4 days a week, then 3, then 2, and then once a month at board meetings. So you just, as a chair, in effectively a chairman role, keeping an eye on your investment and your business. But that means you've got to build a talented team around you that will deliver the results. It mustn't be you as the owner.
So from what Rob's saying, one of the most important things in terms of creating real value in the business that other people will want to acquire is having a predictable outcome to hiring. So how do you do predictive hiring so the people that you hire succeed in the role, fit in, improve over time, and stay?
Yeah, definitely. The second thing they must do, apart from making themselves redundant from their own company, is get robust financial reporting as part and parcel of their of the company's processes.
And what does that mean in practice? What do they need to be able to see on a daily, weekly, monthly
Right.
basis?
Well, definitely monthly management accounts that give an update on the P&L and the balance sheet, and then compare it to this time last year. That's a must. Any buyer is going to ask for that. Obviously, you need your statutory accounts available. Most people have got them somewhere on their C drive. If you're not getting monthly management accounts, because your accountant's resistant, sack your accountant because you've outgrown your accountant. Find one that does it as part and parcel of what they offer to their clients. I've known poor accountants that are not up to the job to kill a deal because there's errors in the accounts, the statutory accounts, there's gaps. These things put the wind up buyers and they'll just walk away. Or they will say, well, we were going to offer you 2 million, but with the finances as they are, there's too many questions. It's 750,000, not 2 million. Take it or leave it.
And this again speaks to the stuff that we're always talking about, which is how buyers buy. Buyers filter through 3 filters when they're going to make an important decision. The first one is risk. Will this deliver the outcome I intend to rent? And if I decide to do this, will it bite me in the bum later?
That's it.
Once I've bought, can I depend on this person to have my back? And if anything goes wrong, to make it right? If you don't pass those risk filters, you don't go through the second filter, which is opportunity cost, which is if I spend my time, my money, my attention, my resources on this, what else could I be spending it on that will give me a better bang for my investment? So third and last and low down the pecking order is value and ROI. Because if you don't pass muster on the first 2, then you're not going to make it on the other. So when you're selling your company, what Rob's advice appears to be is to make bloody sure that the acquirer has no reason to perceive unnecessary risk, that the alternatives are incontrovertibly less attractive, and the upside value is there latent in the business, and they're not going to have to make the sausage all over. But what they can do is they can build on what you've already created so that they can make more money and create more value in the asset. Is that a fair summary?
That's a great summary. And I would lean into that with one more thing as a golden tip. In terms of, all businesses have weaknesses, perceived weaknesses. You can use that in a negotiation with an acquirer, because acquirers are looking for some quick wins as well as a long-term ROI. So they want some comfort knowing that they could make some quick wins by changing things once they own your business within the first 12 months. So think about your company. Maybe you turn over 3 million quid and you're making 700k profit, but you're really poor at marketing. You're not proactive. The phone rings. That's your marketing strategy. Someone rings in and says, "Could I buy X, Y, and Z?" I always turn that around with acquirers and say, "Look, our client's making 700k on the bottom line, but they're doing everything wrong almost." You know, for instance, there's no proactive marketing. There's no marketing strategy. We've seen that your company, Mr. or Mrs. Big Buyer, is good at this. You're really good at this. This is something that my client's business could benefit from, that would benefit you were you to acquire it. So I think it's turning perceived weaknesses into strengths for the acquirer, which I think is reassuring for the seller. You don't have to have the perfect company, but you do need to know what your downsides are as a business and how you might be able to turn that around realistically for the acquirer.
Buyers really genuinely appreciate and want transparency.
Yes.
Coming back to risk, what they don't want to do is make a bad decision. They don't want to buy the car and then discover that the engine or the gearbox is shot to shit. What they want is a risk-free, threat-free experience that matches exactly what they expected when they made the purchase or the investment. And the transaction is over, when the money changes hands. The transaction is over when the acquirer or the buyer says, I got what I expected. Well, you can wait 3 years to give them what they expected, or on first use and handover of the keys, they turn up to a business that is exactly as they expected. They don't suffer from buyer's remorse and try and sue you. And you walk away scot-free with a cash lump sum, and you can move on with your life.
Yeah, you'll get more for your business. You'll have a smaller earnout, less time, and you'll be able to exit stage left much more quickly than would ordinarily been the case.
Okay, what are the other reasons deals get scuppered that are vendor generated, founder generated?
Aspirational price, way too high.
Yeah.
They get greedy. Even when you deliver their aspirational price, now they push the bar even further. Which, so greed comes into it. Also, it's the letting go psychology. They've got a good offer on the table, ready to sign heads of terms and go into due diligence. And then they start to have second thoughts during due diligence. It's about letting go and jumping into what they might see as the abyss of the unknown. So one of the things, when I'm given the opportunity in a mentoring capacity, a couple of years before we sell a business, is to talk about life after sale. Start with that. What are you going to do when the business sells? How are you going to get value? How are you going to feel that you're contributing to life, getting a sense of identity when that sense of identity goes once you've sold your business?
Well, I was thinking of the exact opposite question, which is, what challenges do you foresee after the acquisition, and how can I help address those now?
Oh, from an acquirer's perspective, yes, I need the seller, the founder of the company, on board for a period of time. I don't really want them there because it could be a pain in the neck for me, because the former owner could be a lightning rod for dissatisfaction within the company I've just purchased.
Yeah.
You know,
conversations. Oh, we were rid of Rob.
What he's doing, he's meeting staff at the coffee machine, saying it wasn't like that in my day, was it? Do you know what? They're bringing in this new initiative. It won't work.
Yeah.
So as an acquirer, I'm very mindful of that, and I'd want to get the old owner out as soon as possible. But what I do need as acquirer is that maybe 20, 30 years knowledge tied up in the owner's mind, a former owner's mind, contacts. But I'd want to get them out as soon as possible because they're a risk to me post-acquisition.
Right. So as a founder, surely one of the best things that you can do is create a proper handover document and a handover process that you go through so that you make yourself redundant.
Yes, that's part of it, but it's also making yourself redundant from, as I mentioned, from your own company. So there's a senior management team that are staying with the business, and they're the people the acquirer is buying. Really, they shouldn't need you to stay on in any shape or form. So any knowledge, any expertise, any client large client relationships that's still going through the owner, that should all stop. They shouldn't be dealing as an owner with client relationships, dealing with hiring and firing, that should all be delegated to talented and experienced people.
Something that you've just thought triggered. One function of a founder is to be the chief storyteller, and to be able to tell the story to investors and to the market, but also to make sure that there are the right stories that everybody in the organization can tell. So, the key person story, the hero customer story, origin story, the reason we exist story. What would you advise people to do in terms of developing their ability not only to create great story, but then to be able to deliver it in a compelling way, so that the audience doesn't feel the urge to slit their wrists?
Try the old 80-20 rule, reverse it, that they only speak for 20% of the time, the seller. And that should be asking questions of the buyer. And I mean, if they can ask more questions if they can ask a lot more questions rather than go into presentation mode, which is quite hard to sit through because most business owners are very excited about the widget that they've invented and the various
The curse of the expert. The curse of the expert. You see this in stories, you see it in training. I'm guilty of it too. Is that you want to give everyone everything, and they can only consume so much. Otherwise, they suffer from an overload. And your point about having asking questions. Check out something called learning conversations for the audience. It would, in this context, it would be something along the lines of, so what's your vision for the acquisition?
Exactly.
How do you see it fitting into your broader business strategy?
Yeah. How would it benefit your company by acquiring my business?
Yeah. But what challenges do you foresee after the acquisition? And
Yeah.
how can I help you address those now?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about some key milestones that shaped our success. How do you see leveraging those moving forward? How can we work together to maximize the business's value during the transition process?
It's very straightforward, isn't it? Do you know how they usually start? 30 years ago, and then we go through a chronology.
Oh, Lord.
Now, it's good to tell stories, but don't do, it's like giving every milestone since 1967.
Yeah.
The buyer's not interested. They're buying the future, not the past, the acquirer. They're more interested, and you've encapsulated it really well, Marcus. They want to know going forward, what advantage and what benefits could they experience, both short term and longer term, by buying that business?
This again speaks to another really important element of creating a healthy business that makes a profit, that runs without you needing to be there, means that you've created an asset instead of buying a job.
That's exactly it. A lot of small businesses suffer from that, Marcus, which is they've created, maybe it's 500,000 turnover and making a few quid on the bottom line.
Yeah.
It's plateaued and it works well for the owner. They're taking some reasonable divvies and paying them a small salary for tax purposes, and that works well. But that is not going to excite an acquirer.
Absolutely. So, building on your idea that, or your statement that people are buying the future, not the past. How do you plan to leverage the company's existing assets to drive future growth? Where do you see the biggest opportunities to innovate or expand in the next 5 years if you acquire this business?
And those sorts of insightful questions could, for some of the sellers, be a career opportunity, their next career opportunity, because the buying company might say, look, we'd like you to head up the European arm.
Yeah.
And if that was something that was of interest to the seller, they've just opened up a really good opportunity for work.
Well, if you are smart about this and you understand the direction your market is likely to go, you create the strategy and the plan so that it's either a reason for them to acquire the business because they see the growth potential, or they see the growth potential with you heading it up with the requisite level of autonomy and authority and agency to be able to make it successful. And because you've got a clear plan that they can believe in, that's in their language, and this again is another major problem. You see it in sales with departments like HR and marketing not being able to get deals over the line because they don't put their proposition in the language of finance. If they did, finance would then be able to make an easy assessment. In the same way, investors don't invest in companies they don't understand, and so they ask protection questions.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's what your acquirer will do as well. If they don't understand your business or there's any ambiguity, uncertainty, threat, or risk, they will ask questions to protect themselves naturally.
Yeah. I've got one common question. I mean, that was all coming from the most common question: how much is my business worth, Rob? There is a second question that follows, that is always, which is, why are your fees expensive, Rob? Which I love. And in fact, I get it when I do master classes, exhibitions. I get it from the audience in the Q&A. How much do you charge? It's always the price question. So when someone says to me on a one-to-one, how much is why are your fees expensive? I would normally say, compared to what? And that tends to unearth whether I'm in a beauty parade or not, which is fine.
Can we go into a little bit of coaching? If you see an objection not as something to be handled, but as an invitation to intimacy, it's someone inviting you over the threshold and into the hearth, saying, I'm uncertain, I don't feel safe. Help me understand. And you look at it as a catapult to get closer, as a learning opportunity. When someone asks you about your price and why you're expensive, and you were to respond, Rob, it's a very fair question, and I'm delighted that you asked. Tell me something. There must be a reason why you're asking about price at this stage. Do you mind telling me why that is?
They'd give an answer. It'd be quite interesting to see what triggered that. It'd be very interesting to see what triggered that.
Absolutely. I'm curious. Do you mind telling me why you asked me that question at this particular moment? That's your follow-on
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for the free coaching, by the way. That's very helpful. I will use that tomorrow.
Excellent.
In
Well,
my next
again, if it comes out of the buyer's mouth, it's their data. If it comes out of your mouth, it's worthy of being argued with. And if you justify and defend anything, you risk them responding like for like.
Yeah.
Because back what you project out.
I'm very happy with people who want commission only to go to my competitors. They can clog up their pipeline, no problem.
Absolutely. So, given how often many owners think they're holding a winning hand when they're sitting across from a buyer, in that moment, what are the top 3 self-sabotaging mistakes that owners make when they're trying to agree the terms of their sale? And how do they turn their greatest strength into their greatest liability in the boardroom?
Number 1 is they keep using the word I when they're speaking with a buyer. If they spoke about the team, that would be to their advantage. It's the team that does this. It's the team that have achieved this, not I. Even we is a sort of is a weaker one. It's better than I, but it's not as good as the team.
Yeah.
The MD, the general manager. This is what they're doing. This is what they've achieved. So that's the first one. Number 2, in terms of the sabotaging, they talk too much. They overshare. And when they start a sentence with, you see, the trouble is, or to be honest, I hate the word. To be honest with you, Mr. Buyer. No.
There are a couple of other linguistic tells that you need to be careful about. Anything that follows the word but. Yeah, I love you, but. Okay, so what follows that essentially negates what precedes it. Got to stop using the word just because it's a diminishing word I'm just calling to catch up. Make sure that your communication is timely, relevant, valuable, succinct, and go through a 3-step process. If I had to remove 50% of this, which 50% would be left? If I have to remove 50% of the 50%, what would be left? And if I had to remove 50% of that, what would be left? And what we're looking for is what matters most to the other person, and we're always looking at it through their eyes first. Your needs must get met, but they are a symptom of getting your acquirer's needs met. As a manager, they're a symptom of getting your team's needs met. We've got to stop this command and control malarkey. Your job is not to try and control your people. Your job is to unleash the potential that they have and create the conditions for them to do their best work so you can do less.
Completely agree. The other self-sabotaging thing that happens quite regularly near the end is the seller answers questions that they haven't been asked. This is part of the presentation. This is part of waffling, oversharing, and going off script, or going off piste, I should say. Stop answering questions that the buyer hasn't asked. If they haven't asked it, it's probably not important to them.
And also, I mean, along with the rule, never answer an unasked question, always listen out. Was there a full stop or a question mark at the end of the sentence?
Yeah.
The clue there, never answer a statement.
Very good.
Yeah. Simple stuff, but very easy to fall foul because of it.
It's easy to, in the heat of battle, and when you're very close, you're within touching distance of 3 million quid cash. You can relax a little bit too much and unravel the work that's been done.
Absolutely.
So quickly.
Again, rehearsal, preparation, intentional, deliberate practice, iterative improvement, looking in the ugly mirror. And a couple of things that I would strongly urge you to do. If you're not using AI yet, use it as a thought partner. In doing that, you can prepare for every objection. One of my favorite ones there is produce the 30 objections that an acquirer is likely to have to my proposition.
Almost like in a court of law, the defense and the prosecution. That really works out well for both parties.
Yeah, well, design your business as if you mean to sell it tomorrow, and
Yes.
design it with the intention of selling it to a specific audience, if you can, and design it so that it maximizes the value for you and creates maximum opportunity for them to create value when you sell, and you can walk away.
Yeah.
If you design your business that way, have we missed anything important?
I think you put it very succinctly, Marcus.
Okay, well, what if it takes you 3 years to get there?
Yeah.
Would it be worth the effort?
There you go.
Cool. Very instructive. Rob, thank you. Tell me, you've got a golden ticket. You can go back and whisper in the idiot Rob's ear, age 23 or so. You're invincible, immortal, and undoubtedly was right. What advice would you have given young Rob that he would have ignored?
2 bits. Listen more. Also, go for it. Procrastination can kill a business. So those, I used to be quite hesitant, even though I was quite self-assured in my 20s and 30s. I was still reticent to make decisions because of the fear of failure. And actually, having failed on many occasions over the decades, I don't have a fear of it anymore. I just go for it. So that's what I would say to my 23-year-old self. And also the wise counsel of others. I may not go with what they say, but I'll be well informed. And what I might do and have done quite regularly is adapt my approach, or included something, or left something out that I was going to go with. So I think, the boards can be, boards in companies can be, if they're handled right, could be a real hotbed for initiative, ideas, chewing things over and getting a better result than one person making a decision on their Todd.
Okay. Lovely. How can people get a hold of you?
The best way is via LinkedIn. I put quite a bit of content out on LinkedIn. So Rob Goddard. The only thing I ask that if someone makes an invitation to connect and then within a nanosecond try and pitch to me, I'll unattach from that relationship. So please, I'm very open to connecting with anyone, because you never quite know whether that might be quite helpful for both of us later on down the line. But I don't like the pitching within a nanosecond.
Yeah.
But none of us do, I guess.
Well, again, it's counterproductive. And I think the other thing that we should also caveat is if you're looking to acquire a business for zero money, don't bother with all that.
No, please go to my competitors. I've got a whole list.
Okay. Are they on your website? How about those?
No, but if someone contacts me, links with me on LinkedIn, I'll give them a private message.
Absolutely. Excellent. Rob Goddard, thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.
So this is Marcus Cauchi wrapping up once again for the Inquisitor podcast. I want to leave you with this thought. Selling or growing your business is about much more than just the numbers. It's about aligning with the right vision, asking the right questions, setting yourself up for success. Whether you're preparing for an exit, looking for an acquisition, navigating for growth, the right strategy can make all the difference. If today's conversation has sparked new ideas or made you realize that there's more you need to explore, don't wait. Reach out either to me or to Rob. The path to success is built on clarity, action, and the courage to make the right moves at the right time. Until the next time, stay curious, stay committed, keep pushing the future you want to create, and happy selling. Bye-bye.